So just to begin with, here we have some of the ideas that I was having while doing this little project. We start off here because this is, I think related to, I think this was at the beginning of the artwork where, we could have had two types of artworks that we could choose from, and one was including this kind of, ability that I saw mostly was stretching out of the person's back. But then I saw that the overwhelming majority of references and also ideas that I could be having were mainly from weapons. So yeah, so this has just kind of been ruled out in my opinion, although a very, very good idea, and I will be linking the artist who made that. I think majority of the ideas come from these. So we'll be starting from the middle because I think this is my strongest reference. And the reason why I like this so much and I want to talk about it so that I kind of reinforce what I want to be kind of recreating in this reference. And that's going to be, first of all, it's going to be the fact that it's simple. It's simple, it's blocky, the silhouette is very easy to read. These are, I think, the main and biggest things. Okay, you have the arm. It's literally just it's two tubes attached by this box with corners on it, right? With triangles on it. There's something about that which although very simple, screams detail, screams thoughtful shape design, and it works. So, I that's something I really do want to recreate. The sword is very simple, but the colors are very nice. I really, really enjoy the contrast. It's that kind of this grayish color contrasting with this very red, dark red, bloody color. Gesture is very simple. It's just going like this. And although quite stiff in a sense, it feels like there's a lot of impact in what this person is about to pull out of the sword. So this seems like a very preparatory kind of pose, and I think the dull kind of colors and stance, well, not colors, but the dull kind of stance really works for it. So yeah, also the obvious contrast between no detail and high detail is something that I really, really love. I'm just loving this high detailed zones compared to, the relatively low detailed zones over here. Low detailed zone, high detailed zone, low detailed zone, high detail. Like this is also low detailed zone, but this is a very high detailed zone. High detailed zone, but this is pretty low detailed zone. These are pretty high detailed zones. So it's like it's repeating. You have low, high, low, high, low, high, and it's like constantly going in that pattern. In proper areas where you want the eye to focus on. Like if we removed all of these and just kind of block out which parts is my eye naturally falling on because it's more detailed. Well, instantly I would say this arm or this hand. There's contrast in black and white, plus it's quite detailed. I would say this immediately catches my attention. This immediately catches my attention. Hair definitely catches my attention. I would just keep it a very simple shape. Right? Very simple, very enjoyable to look at. And the sword, of course, I'm just going to name this part because I think this is the most enjoyable part to look at, and also these things. So that is kind of where my eyes are falling on mostly. It's where you have great changes in shape design compared to the very smooth and natural, I guess you could say, shape design of the character. And overall, it works really well for a really, really solid piece, and that's a lot of things I want to be able to recreate in my painting. So moving on, over here are kind of a more weapon-oriented things, what I wanted for weapons. I really enjoyed this rosy golden kind of weapon. Sword is definitely something I was wanting to recreate. Ignore this, by the way, this came with the photo, but yeah. something with a few spikes, not too overly complicated, and very elegant, right? I want to do something with red, and roses are probably the most elegant way to hold it out. These are also pretty cool. The emphasis on the sword is pretty important in this piece, I believe. However, I think most of the judges are pretty young, so I don't think they would really care about how much thought I put into the sword. Rather, I think they would care about how the sword ties along with the character in general. So something like this, I feel like would really be appreciated, because I mean there's a lot to say about this. You know how we have a lot of sharp claws in this painting. You have one claw here, claws here in the clouds, claws as he goes down into this kind of blood dripping string, more claws. So it kind of, he comes out of the clouds as these little formation and figments of claws are kind of jumping out, right? His body himself is very slender and thin, but it all kind of gestures out into this S curve, right? Which I think looks magnificent, and it proves to be a very nice picture. The weapon itself very not that very detailed. It's literally just a bunch of just abstract shapes forming a very elegant and gesture-like weapon in the form of a scythe. Very good contrast here. A lot of blending tones overlapped by very sharp indication of figure and also of this weapon. Moving on to here is a very similar thing as well, where you have an extremely long scythe, might I add. It goes from here, and this is foreshortening as well. See, this is quite long. More. Sorry about that. I probably have to go right now. So similar to how the previous one worked, there's also quite a few claws here, which signify that curve of the scythe quite well. Besides that, the majority of the image is one big S curve this time as well. Contrast on the head makes it feel like a figure. Very large contrast in the middle, with two large contrasts on the side. If you see three big shapes going in this form, you can kind of tell that this is a person and nothing else but a person, right? Lots of minor bits and pieces of detail here. A very lovely piece in general. I think over here in these, I think the biggest call to action would be don't forget the gesture and the gesture involved in the fluidity of your weapon, right? Especially if it is curvy and has S curves and C curves, similar to how human gesture works, right? Take that into advantage. If your weapon does have C curves and S curves, I feel like it's pretty important to allow it to follow its own gesture of its own. I mean, to be really honest, I think the weapon has the most gesture compared to the character. The character is quite stiff as compared to the the weapon, right? I mean, there is a pretty strong gesture going down here, but for the most part, it's a very stiff and solid pose. He's very firmed into the ground, yet still showing a bit of elegance with his knees, just to give the sense that he's floating. Over here as well, a lot of elegance with his body kind of wrapping around and being thin and maintaining this kind of how do I say, posh kind of twisted legs together, kind of floating around, that kind of pose, allowing it to feel like it's, not only is it still, but it is floating, you know. And does it have really that much gesture? Apart from the very beautiful S-curve that they've made, you have the head. It is going down straight with, a line over here, and it's kind of going down, but there's not really that much gesture that I can really see. The main points of attraction are clearly in both of these paintings: the weapon, the trail of blood, and the overall, like, even if I had my eyes closed or very very squinted, I could tell that there is supposed to be a visibility, or like your eyes are supposed to fall upon this S area and this area over here. Right, there's a clear visibility to that, and that works really well for both of these paintings. Moving on to here, I really liked how, I think over here is, first of all, straight away, the ability to combine the style of your character alongside your weapon, right? Because in this case, the weapon is actually quite simplistic, but it almost feels like the weapon is part of the character, which makes the weapon feel more unique, although it isn't. Okay, so in this case, you could kind of feel like just by the claws, right, of this person, it kind of gives the sense that this person is the weapon. This sword, it's almost coming out of his arm. It's not really like, this guy looks like he could kill you even if he didn't have this, sword coming out of his body. So, the orb, the mysterious figure, the look on his, the entire figure exudes mystery, and you don't know how he works, you don't know how he communicates, you don't know how he thinks. So everything here screams unpredictability, screams mystery, and that gives this figure, all the praise that I think it deserves. Apart from the great use of like contrast here by keeping a black environment on something that otherwise would be a very simple subject. This black orb does a great job. If this was anything else but that black orb, I think it would have failed quite a bit. Very simple forms for the legs, extremely simple knees, extremely simple going down. The feet are not even rendered fully. This is his other foot in the background. I think when it comes down to how much you can get out of a painting with as little lines as possible, I feel like this is one of the greatest contenders out there on this mood board, where you have just a very simple drapery going down, not that many lines, not that many gesture curves, and as you're going down you draw a few details, and just those few little details give you so much richness into the painting. Just like these few dots over here, or like just a few little lines, give a sense that it's marble, give a sense that these holes have so much depth into them, and there's so much thought put into the design of this creature. These holes in the body, like this and this and this, kind of tell you like, okay, maybe these are breathing holes, maybe this is the anatomy of this creature going down like this, all the bumps and all the features. Over here is definitely the most detailed part here, by far. It's trying to keep your eyes on the main show, which is this weird creature. The elbows of this creature are obviously connected to this cape that it has. Over here it's doing the same thing. So you can see over here like the arms, the moment it starts developing into the arms, you can kind of get a human sense of anatomy with just a lot of bumps and veins passing through. But those veins that originally connect to the center, which connects to this kind of weird dual hole, triple hole mouth thing that goes down to its, you know, pelvis area. So yeah, just very very cool stuff. There is like these weird bumps on the side, and also a very funny, cape. Sorry, rather, I'm not sure what it's called, a ribbon. Usually this would be, in your Romans or whatever, in your army people in the Roman Empire or whatever it is. Putting it here is a funny reference. It just looks cool, and I think it doesn't really add anything to the picture other than just style points, which I don't see a problem with adding. It definitely doesn't take away from the base, which is what matters, I believe. Lot of, I think the greatest contrast between this makes it so that your eyes fall on this first. And I mean, by far, I think the greatest use of gesture is like, or at least one of the greatest uses of gesture is here, where you have like this beautiful curve going down like this and going around like this. It's great, and the fact that it's not overlapped by this QB thing is just wonderful. How it doesn't get overlapped by that is how it works. Don't ask me. So yeah, although perhaps you could say that this, you have a contrast between a very free side of the space and a very congested side of this space, connected by this really beautiful gesture line, is a reason why this works. So that's another thought to have if you want to think about it like that. Moving down to no, that's not really wanted. This is, I think we're done when it comes to weapons. Yeah, I think we're done when it comes to weapons. Over here is talking a little bit about the environmental aspect of my post, of my drawing. If I did want to add an environment, how would I do it, right? So over here, we have a really, I love this weapon design, by the way, but the armor or the character itself I'm not a very big fan of it. But the weapon design, very, very cool. I mean, it's like you get a really nice gesture, by the way, over here. Go down like this, and also kind of curls down into the sword as it goes up. So maybe thoughtful design. I will be honest, although a very, very cool weapon, I think that this is not the strongest contender when it comes to character design. I think it's just not a very appealing looking character, because of colors, because of design choices, because of just where it is on the picture, right? And the colors used does not fit this background, but I think the biggest prize, apart from the weapon, just a very cool looking weapon, is the background. The background is insane. I am in love with this background. Using such a solemn, the colors and the low values all being used together to form this very low contrasty, less eye catching. Like your eyes immediately fall on this, and it doesn't really fall on any of this, although it is so like pretty looking, yeah. And that's just because it's just I also like how there are holes in this building which he covered with this cape to remove any more sense of contrast, just to keep the focus on his character. I think that's very, 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 very smart. And I think the reason why I think the biggest thing to take away here is background art matters, just a little bit if you want to, and the way you implement it is by using lower values. Again, if you want that to be your way of doing it, lower values for the background causes eyes to stay on target onto the main foreground image. So yeah, over here, another sense of lovely, lovely background art. I think this is great. You have your character head, and there's this outer shield, almost like half of an egg that's popping out of the character. And although there's a really nice image of contrast and contours being shown here, there's also this background that's kind of overlapping from the head in concentric circle manner, and I think that's really, really, really cool. I wouldn't really be able to tell you the gesture here if I wanted to. I guess most of the eye is fallen under the contrast between the sword and the the darkness of the sword and the brightness of the darkness of the cape and the brightness of the sword, that causes a lot of the eye to be drawn into this one specific line, which leads to a lot of really nice smooth movements between the sword and the human going down into this tree, kind of like this. So it's kind of one big up, like inverted U. I mean C. So that would probably be my take from it. The tree, very very beautiful, and it's not too captivating on the eyes because this is just a lot more darker. Somehow this is not that captivating. I mean, it is very captivating, at least to me, but when I combine both of these, my eyes immediately fall into the character and not the tree. So somehow I don't really understand this. I don't understand how this works. I think part of it is part of the like many concentric circles that's appearing in this one little area. I think that is definitely to contribute. But yeah, very very curious as to how and why that works and looks so good. Over here, the main focus is definitely armor, and kind of just sleekness, right? How he managed to make this look very sleek, although it is very detailed. Yeah. Of course, we have areas of high definition and low definition. The shapes are very simple. You have just this, and you have just this, and it's a very thin. I like this curve a lot. Very cool, thin shapes. There's no specific area I would say my eyes fall on, at least me. Looking at it more closely, I would definitely say my eyes at least fall really on this area over here. I think this pose is very cool, by the way, and probably like this area over here, like this light area. I would probably think of that, and maybe like this area over here, like the abs as well. Over here is very cool as well. Lots of really interesting shapes leading down to this arm, which has this little spiky bit. Very cool. Contrast between the very sharp and coordinated lines of the armor, intermixed with this very flowy and overlappy drapery side of the body can cause a really nice layer of contrast from here. This could be all very straight, very sharp lines and figures and anatomy, but over here is very fluid. Even this has a lot of fluidity going up and around. So and also maybe perhaps even here, if you wanted to consider this part also very fluid. So you have a contrast between so you have this part you don't have here, and you also have it here. So there's a lot of contrast there as well. Moving here, nothing really particularly interesting about this post. I just included it because I just kind of liked it. There was something about the very thin gesture line with a very just thin and straight and captivating line in between. Has something really pretty about it. I also really enjoyed these lines that he drew over here as part of this guy's cape, I believe. Very cool. The very thin and sleekness of this piece is that's definitely what captivates me the most. So that's just a little thought. Over here we have a very rough drawing, very unlike a lot of the other posts here. I still think this is a very cool post. A lot of detail, a lot of contrast, a lot of lighting. I think the main focus here is definitely lighting and story behind the character. I mean, this guy has a lot of history. I mean, I don't know. This has a lot of stories to tell, and it's definitely not. Although the weapon is not very detailed, I'm still in love with just the weapon. I'm just in love how has he used this weapon? And there's also this character on the left. I didn't even notice it until later on. So yeah, I think this is just by far the most interesting part of the body. Just this crazy bird claw thing with the eye and the feathers look great. So it's just the wild aspect of it with a lot of details onto the feathers and character design can help it a lot as well. So that's going to be pretty much an analysis of all the things that I chose to do for my mood board for the drawing. And I'll see you in a bit.